Hello everyone, today we'll be reviewing the next upcoming launch, the Elta. Now the Elta follows the Ori as the next launch that is high-rise. So with the Ori, they launched at around 2,700 per square foot on average, all the way to 3,000. So how is that going to affect our prices here? So we'll be running through all our estimated prices from lowest floor to highest floor, as well as going through what might be worth considering and the things you do need to take note if you're thinking about going for this development. So let's get started. So for location-wise, where is the Elta located? It's along Clementi Avenue 1 over here. Now you have two next door neighbours, which is the Clavon as well as Clement Canopy. Now this will be the last plot to come out along this stretch. Now the other important thing to take note for this area is that we are in Clementi, which is a bit of a hybrid area. So what do I mean by that? Now in some areas it is known for own stay more so, and others are known for very strong rental. But Clementi is actually both. Now I can take a stone and throw at any development in the area, and I can tell you in general rental is very strong in demand in this area. And that's because number one, we are located very near a lot of universities like NUS as well as SIM, and number two, you are between two major business hubs, which is Jurong as well as One North. Now coming to the own stay element, you also have a lot of primary schools, 6 to be exact here. You also have Nanhua, which a lot of families are coming in here for the location. So that's important for us to keep in mind when we do look at the different bedroom types in order to know who might be your future resale buyer for that bedroom type. So let's get into the details. So this development is brought to you by MCL as well as CSC Land, which you might know from the recently launched Nava Grove, Tembusu Grand as well as Leedon Green. So this will be 2 blocks over here which are tall, that go all the way up to the 39th story. Now something to take note for this development is it is also elevated. So the first floor you're going to get for a unit starts at level 4. Now the other thing is the expected TOP is expected in 2029. You have a total of 501 units, a good size with 401 parking spots. So I think that's quite a good ratio over here. Now let's get into the site plan. Before that, let's look at the unit mix. So we have 1 plus study all the way to 5 bedroom. Now in this development, for each layout, mostly there's only 1 stack, except for the 3 bedroom. So if let's say you're going for this particular layout, you're only going to get that facing. Now looking at the site plan, so you have full facilities, you have the pool over here, you also have a court. Now one really nice touch, I must say, when I went there is really the feel and the design of this development. Now the minute you enter, you're going to see a lot of wooden structures like this sitting area, which really makes it feel very good when you enter, and there's a lot of landscaping. So I wouldn't say it feels like the typical look you will get in a lot of condos along this stretch. Now the other thing is, I do love that there was a kids playroom over here and that is air conditioned, which is a big bonus point. So looking at the site plan, you're going to have 2 main facings. So number 1 is inwards towards the estate over here. Now opposite, you're going to have Nanhua High School. So if you are planning on going that side, you will need to be at least above roughly the 7th floor to clear the view. Now on the other side, you have the AYE. Now for this side, you are facing the highway, but the bonus for this side is, especially if you're on the higher floor, you are facing a pocket of sea view further up. So you're going to get quite nice views from that. So let's go into first the developer pricing strategy, what we might think it be. Okay, so for the developer pricing strategy, now how do we know how they might price the units? We do so by looking at a recently launched development, Nava Grove. Now, why am I looking at Nava Grove? It is by MCL, which is also the developer here. So for a lot of developments and developers, we'll see that usually for the same type of developments, in this case both are high-rise, they have a very similar pricing strategy. If it works for them in past launch, they are very unlikely to change it in upcoming launches. So let's see how they price for Nava Grove. So for Nava Grove, let's first look at the 2 bedroom which faces the forest. So of course, this is the more premium view within this development. Now something you will notice is that between the first few floors, the jump is about 0.5% per floor. Then after that, from the 7th to the 8th floor, you suddenly have a jump over here of about 1%. And then after that, you'll have the next 2 floors, the same amount, and then it goes back to jumping 0.5% again before you come to the next tier, the high floors, which again we see a 2.5% jump here to here, same price, and then 0.5% again. So is this the same with the other facing also? Let's have a look. So with the other facing, now let's look at the 3 bedrooms. Now this faces the neighboring development, which is Pine Grove. So for Pine Grove, again with the 3 bedroom, over here you see that it jumps for 0.4%, so very close to what we saw in the 2 bedroom. And then again, you have a 0.8% jump before it comes to the same price for 2 floors, and then it continues jumping again with the same as earlier, and then you have a jump and then same price again. So you can see the numbers are actually very close and the characteristics is very similar for both facings. Now let's have a look at the bigger unit for the 4 bedroom. Now this again faces the premium view towards the forest. Same thing we see here. So 0.4% in terms of the jump on average. And then you look, down here we have the transacted price, which is 3.225. Then we saw suddenly a jump. The jump from the 7th to the 8th floor again at about 0.8%, and then same price, 0.4% all the way, a jump again at 2.4%, and then same price, and then 0.4% again. So you can see that throughout the different facings, throughout the different unit type, actually MCL has a pretty standard few characteristics when it comes to pricing their units. So how do we apply this now to the Elta to estimate what the price might be? Let's look at the 1+ study. So first we have the layout over here. So for all the 1+ study, you're going to have one stack that is from the 4th to 39th floor. Now this faces inwards towards the school opposite. So for the layout, it is 506 square feet. Now I would say this is quite a typical layout for a 1+ study in the market. You have a proper study area over here, a good sized bedroom, kitchenette, as well as dining area. Now one thing you might notice is there is this stake sticking out over here in the floor plan. So what is that? Now if you go back to the site plan over on this side, you might notice that the stack next to us is actually slightly in front, which creates this stagger feeling, which is why you might have a wall on the side of your unit. So the big question is, what do you think the launch price will be for the 1+ study? Now with Ori, you're starting 1+ study at about 1.28 million, which is close to 2,500 PSF. Now how does that make the price for this turn out? Now on the ground, we're getting a really strong sentiment that these developers are really serious to sell. So just between me and my team's estimate, we feel there is a strong chance you might even be able to get a 2,200 PSF unit in this development. So let's see the estimated for the 1 bedroom. Now, of course, for the 1 bedroom, this is a smaller unit, so we're going to estimate higher, starting with 2,300 PSF. Now, if we apply the same characteristics that we saw in Lava Grove, which is the 0.5% jump, and then we have a 1% jump from the low to the mid floor, as well as at the high floor, another 2.5% jump, followed by the same price for 2 units in between. This will bring our starting price for the 1+ study from 1.163 million all the way to 1.406 million. Now, of course, with 1+ study, we want to know how it does rental-wise as well, especially for somewhere like Clementi. So how does the price for this estimated bring our rental to? So let's have a look at the rental in the area. Now, next door I have Clevon, my neighbor, right? So for the rental there, a level 4 unit is renting at about 3,600, and a high floor unit that just rented out is about 3,700 for a 1+ study. So we translate that to Elta prices. Let's have a look. Okay, so for Elta, if we follow the same rental of lower floor 3,600 a month, let's say we enter in at the lowest floor price of 1.163 million. This will bring our rental yield to 3.7%, which is very strong. So when it comes to rental yield, we always want to try to look for something that is 3% and above. Now for the high floor, let's say we rent higher at 3,007 and we buy at the highest price, which is 1.406. This will bring the rental yield to 3.1%. So the strategy for the 1 bedroom is really to go for the lower floors first if you can, and then the higher floor, because the rental yield is definitely stronger for lower floors here. But that being said, I will caveat to say that for higher floor units, usually it is faster to rent out. But when it comes back to the returns on rental, usually for the lower floor, it will do stronger first. Moving on to the 2 bedrooms, let's first start with the 2-bed, 1-bath. So for 2-bed, 1-bath, you're going to have 2 different layouts and both have 1 stack each. So for one, it's facing inwards towards the school, and for the other one, it's facing towards the AYE. So which side is going to be more premium? To be honest, it's going to be quite hard to tell for this development. Now, typically, if you have one facing inwards and the other one towards the AYE, you might think that the premium side will be the inwards facing one. But in this case, the AYE side is also the side with a really good sea view. And if you look at the site plan, the bigger units are tucked towards the AYE side. So there is a good chance the developer might price the premium over there. Regardless, it's important for us to know how to choose a unit within our stack. So coming back to the 2-bed 1-bath, before we go into the pricing, what is the difference between the two layouts, which are the same square feet, 614, 614. Now, before I go into the differences, I really want to shout out to this developer for putting an enclosable kitchen in the 2-bed 1-bath, which of course makes it more functional and comfortable to live in, because I think in the past 10 years in Clementi, there's only been one other development that's put enclosable kitchen in 2-bed 1-bath. Now, for the differences, if you look at the bedroom entrance, for B2, you might notice it's a bit more staggered. Now, what is this going to do for you? It's going to give you more privacy, because people cannot look directly into your house, or into your bedroom rather. Now, the other difference is the wall where the sofa is placed. So for B2, you notice that it is a bit longer. Now, how is that going to benefit you? If let's say I move my TV to the other side, because my wall is quite long, if I build a TV console there, I can build cabinetry to have more storage at the side. And of course, with a 2-bed 1-bath, more storage is always a bonus. So between the two, I will prioritize B2. So that brings us to what the possible pricing might be for this. Now, if the 1+ study is starting at 2003, we estimate that there is a strong chance the 2-bed 1-bath might start at 2,200. Of course, once the developers have released the starting price, you can take that in to estimate what the price might be. But the most important thing for us to know is how we're going in terms of pricing and what is our budget, so that we are financially prepared when it comes time to choose a unit, because it's a very high pressure and fast situation. So if that's the case for 2-bed 1-bath, our lowest floor unit will be 1.35 million, whereas the highest floor will be 1.632 million. Now, the important thing to also note when we're thinking about pricing for this development is that it is post-harmonization ruling, whereas its next door neighbors are pre-harmonization. So if we just compare to Clermont, which is next door, for their 2-bed 1-bath, it is 678 square feet, whereas for this, it is 614 square feet. Now, pre-harmonization areas such as the AC ledge was still counted inside, whereas for Elta, it is post-harmonization, so only the usable space is counted inside. So though both the square feet may look different, when you walk in, the usable space is going to feel very similar. So why do we need to take note of that when it comes to pricing? Now, let's say on Clermont right now, if you look at resale listings for this size, you're going to find on average they are about 2,100 PSF. So if you can get something that is really close to Clermont's 2001, like example 2002, it's going to be a very good deal, because it might come up even cheaper because the square foot that is counted in is less. Now, how about 2,300 or even 2,400 PSF? Actually, with this price, you can still consider, because ultimately, with less space counted into the overall square foot, even at a higher PSF, the quantum still comes out to be about the same as the resale, which gives it a safe buffer. Now, going in next to the 2-bed 2-bath. Now, same with these two layouts, they are going to have one facing towards the school as well as one facing towards the AYE. Now, both are also 700 square feet. So what are their differences? So both have 36 units. Now, for the layout, it is extremely similar except for one thing, which is the entranceway. So for B4, it is actually longer than B3. Now, how might this affect your resale? Now, if you walk in and you have a very long, narrow walkway the minute you enter, this can give like a psychological impression that the unit might feel smaller versus if you walk into a short walkway and then straight away you see the space, right? But honestly, between the two, they are still very similar and functional, I would say. Proper dining, bedroom, and 2-bathroom with enclosable kitchen again, which is great. But if I had to pick between the two, then I will prioritize B4. And of course, that one will face the quieter facing also. Now again, what will be the price for the 2-bed 2-bath? Now, this one I am really excited about if it comes out as we predict. Now, for 2-bed 2-bath, starting at 2,200. This means the lowest floor is at about 1.54 million versus the highest floor, which would be about 1.86 million. Now you go to any of the other launches in the past few months, 1.86 million for a 2-bed, 2-bath is usually around the middle floor pricing. But for this, you're actually getting the top floor, the 39th floor. So I really think it's a very good deal if prices come out to be as such. Now, for the other thing we want to take note is what is the resale price in the area. So just now we talked about pre and post harmonization. Now, what about the transacted quantums? So if you look at Clementi that is next door, for 2-bed, 2-bath, it is already comfortably being transacted between the 1.5 million all the way to 1.668 million over here. Now, looking at the price list where we estimated, this means that you might be able to get units that are below what is transacted at Clementi or very similar to it, all the way up to the middle floor. Now, if we can get a resale and a new at very similar price, I think this really creates a very safe scenario when down the road in 5 years, you are the newer one, but your entry price is so close. So I'm keen to see how they release for this one. Now, the last layout for a 2-bedroom will be a 2-bed plus study, which is 807 square feet. Now, there are some pros and cons to this layout, but let me first go through you the details. So again, all the 2 bedrooms here, enclosable kitchen, and of course, you have your 2 bathrooms over here, and the difference is that you have the study over here. Now, for this one, I would say the cons is that it is 807 square feet, which is quite big for a 2-bed plus study. It puts it very close to the smallest 3-bedroom, which we'll go through later. But on the other hand, if you're really purely buying this for rental and you consider it for co-living, it just might work out, which I'll show you in a bit. But first, let's go through what the estimated price would be so we can look at the rental. So for 2-bed plus study, if it's starting at 2,200, it means the lowest floor unit will be 1.775 million, whereas the highest floor unit will be 2.145 million. Okay, so how does that bring our rental? Now, I feel that if you actually do something that is a co-living style, it might actually be very good in terms of numbers. Now, why do I say that? Now, you might be able to block your living room area as another room. Now, this idea came to my mind when I visited the SHOWFLAT because when I walked in the living room, wow, I really felt it was so spacious. Like, even if you're buying this just for your own stay, the size is really so comfortable. Of course, because it is a bigger 2-bed plus study. So if we did cordon off the living area to be another room for co-living, assuming that the master bedroom with bathroom is 2,200 for a room rental, the common bedroom is 1,500, the extra room you have now built is 1,006 because you have access to the balcony, so slightly higher, and the study room is rented at 900. This would bring the total rental you get back at 6,200. So for 6,200, if I'm entering at the lower floor prices of the 2-bed plus study, it will be about 3.5% for your rental, which is very healthy still. If I go for a mid-floor average, it's about 3.3%, and if I go for a high floor, it is 3.1%. Of course, that being said, not a lot of people will go and buy this for co-living, so it might not still be the 2-bedroom that I prioritize among the 3 categories. Now, before we go into what are our top choices, I just want to go through some considerations because for 2-bedroom in Clementi, the rental factor is very important. So I always get the same few questions for 2 bedrooms, which we'll go through. Now, we'll talk about whether a 2-bed 1-bath or a 2-bed 2-bath is better for rental, whether a low floor or high floor does better for rental, and we'll talk about how the facing might affect how much rental you get back. So first, let's look at the 2-bed 1-bath versus a 2-bed 2-bath. Is the 2-bed 1-bath really better for rental? That's always the sentiment that I hear on the ground. And then they will say 2-bed 2-bath is easier to sell. So is it true? Okay, so we're looking at Clementi next door again. Again, for their 2-bed 1-bath, we saw a rental that occurred, both are high floor at 4,001. And then for their 2-bed 2-bath, again high floor, 4,006 just shortly after. Okay, so I'll say quite a significant gap in rental, but how does it affect the rental yield? So assuming for Elta, if you get similar rental at 4,100, and then you go for a 2-bed 1-bath at the lower 1.35 million, this would bring your rental yield to 3.6%, which is a strong number. Now for the 2 bed 2 bath, if we're getting 4,006, same as Clermont, and then we go in for something at 1.54 million, it will also be 3.6%. So for both, it's actually very possible to get a strong rental yield. The main thing you need to know when deciding between the two is what is the rental in the area and what is the entry price you are going in. It's not really about whether it's a 2 bed 1 bath or a 2 bed 2 bath. Though I would say for the selling side of it, if you're going to sell it, then usually the 2 bed 2 bath is a bit more easier and faster to sell in the market versus the 2 bed 1 bath. But for rental yield wise, it's very possible that both are equally strong. Now, moving on to the next question. Does the high floor have a better rental than the low floor? Now, just now we saw in an earlier example, but we're going to recap here. So for Clermont, again, 2 bed 1 bath. So 4th floor was rented at 4,100 in November. And then you have the 18th floor of the same set renting also at 4,100 in December. So we can see that from the Clermont example, high floor versus lower floor doesn't really have much of a difference in terms of the rental. Now, why? If let's say I only have this unit to rent in the area, especially in a strong rental demand area like Clementi, tenants have no choice. If the high floor is available, they'll go for it. Low floor is available, they will go for it. Now, even in other developments where I've seen them listed at the same time, typically the rental difference for high and low, if it's going to be higher, it's only about a few $100 to $300 or so. So how does that affect your return in a way? So let's look at Elta. If let's say Elta is renting at 4,200 for a low floor, your rental yield entering at 1.35 is going to be 3.7. And then for the high floor, it's going to be 1.631, if you enter for the top floor, that's going to be 3%. So you can see in this case, the low floor and the high floor, because the rental is so similar, your rental yield is actually much better for a lower floor usually. Though I will caveat to say that for lower floor units, the rental yield is better, but it might take a bit longer to get a tenant if let's say there are a lot of higher floor units that are renting out at the same time. So also we want to consider the ROI. So does that mean if I'm buying the lower floor, rental yield is great, but my returns is not so great? Well, that's not actually the case. If we look at, again, the 2 bedroom, 2nd floor versus 35th floor, they actually bought on the same day of purchase, which means whoever walked in had the choice to decide whether they wanted the high or low floor. But the returns at the end of the day when they sold and just 2 days apart, the low floor actually did better with 263,000. So you can see that low floor and high floor are both able to make profit, and in many cases we've seen low floor still do well. So when it comes to this development, 2 bedrooms, we'll talk a bit more about it later. We want to prioritize the low floor first. So lastly, does the expressway have lower rental than a non-expressway? So here we have 2 units that we're renting again at Clermont. Now the AYE facing one, 2 bed 2 bath, is 4,500, whereas the one facing inwards is 4,600 over here. So you can see it's also again very minimal in terms of rental, because if I'm going to rent here, if this is the only available unit, I'm going to go for it. And if you're a tenant, if let's say you go for a unit, okay, it's facing the highway, maybe it's not so ideal, but I only need to stay here for 1-2 years. So usually they might not mind so much. But if you're buying for own stay, will you mind? I think for most people, they might mind. But in terms of rental, it's not going to affect you much which facing it is. How do we prioritize for the 2 bedrooms, which to go for first? Now, I would say first choice, prioritize the 2 bed 1 bath, B1, B2. So the inward facing and then the AYE facing, low floor. Followed by second choice, B1, B2 again, but mid-floor. And third choice, I would say B3 and B4, which is your 2 bed 2 bath, again, inwards there, outwards, low floor. Now, why do I say that for the third choice? If it comes to the point where our 2 bed 1 bath on the higher floor, the price gets very close to the low floor of the 2 bed 2 bath, go for the bigger size. And this is the logic we will follow for bigger units later also. If high floor or smaller unit, very close to low floor or bigger unit, go for the bigger one if you can. Okay, so that will be for 2 bedrooms. Moving on to the 3 bedrooms. So we have 2 layouts for this size. Now the first one you're going to get is 926 square feet. And again, all the 3 bedrooms will face inwards towards the school, which if you're looking for clearance from the school, again, it'll be about 7th floor and above. Now for 926 square feet, unlike the other layouts we've seen, there are actually 2 stacks which will be on the extreme end. Whereas for 1023 square feet, the bigger one, there'll be just 1 stack. So for 926, I would say it's a very quite typical 3 bedroom compact in the sense that it's very functional. So you have an enclosable kitchen over here, as well as every single room again can fit queen size bed, which is important, and your 2 bathrooms. So what are you getting that is extra and different for your 1023? So you have a dry kitchen over here, which adds to the luxe factor, and you have a study over here. I do like where the study is positioned because this also means it's connected to your kitchen. You can use it as a storeroom as well. And something quite unique for this layout, which I rarely see in 3 bedrooms, is you have your bathroom here next to this bedroom. So it can be an ensuite, a junior master suite if you wanted to, or you could keep it as a common bathroom. But this layout offers you that flexibility. So what about pricing? Now let's first look for the smaller layout, 926. Now 926, if it starts at 2,200, the smallest unit will be 2,037,000, whereas the highest will be 2,461,000. Now if the prices come out as we predict, I will be so happy for whoever is able to get the 3 bedroom unit at 2 million, because honestly in today's new launch market, you almost can't find this price anymore for 3 bedroom. Even if you go to resale for newer condos, 3 bedroom for 2 million is really very hard to find. So this is going to be a very attractive deal if we can get this price. Now for the bigger size, 1023 square feet, that will mean your starting price is 2.25 million again, which is still a great price for a 3 bedroom premium. It's honestly very hard to find at this quantum, and your highest floor will be 2,719,000. So which will I prioritize between the two? Now between the two, I wouldn't say one is better than the other, because for 3 bedrooms, I feel that both have its place. But in the case of Elta, I have a strong feeling they will actually be the ones to move first if the quantum comes out as such. So instead, the strategy I would have is go for 926 first. Okay, for 926, if the higher floor, again similar to the 2 bedroom, comes very close to the lower floor 1023, then go for the 1023 square feet. Now, how do you determine if you can go for a higher floor 1023 square feet? You look at what is the pricing for the next bigger size, which will then be the 4 bedroom to compare. So for 3 bedroom, it is really going to come down to a matter of balloting luck. So for all those of you trying for 3 bedrooms out there, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. But go in with a plan, because you don't want to be stuck there and bidding a unit without a strategy, because ultimately this will affect your exit. So based on our estimated price, again for 1023, if you're going to go all the way up to the high floor, I will cut off at about the 30th floor, because if the PSF come up as we estimate, that's when you'll start coming close to the 4 bedroom low floor price. Moving on to the 4 bedrooms, now we have quite a few different layouts for this size, so let's start with the smallest. So for the smallest is 1184 square feet. Now this is going to be facing AYE mainly. As you come into the unit, you have a dry kitchen, which adds to that luxe factor of a 4 bedroom. And in the kitchen, you have a wash closet as well as a storage. For dining area, it's also a good area size where you can fit at least an 8-seater, and you have 4 proper bedrooms. So very functional for a 4 bedroom. So what is the difference between this and the larger unit, which is 1313 square feet? Now for the bigger one, it does face inwards towards the school, but what are you getting for that extra square feet? So if you look at it at first glance, it actually looks very similar. But where the square foot differences are going to come from is some minor size differences in the rooms, and your living room is a little bit wider. Now you might also notice that for the walkway in D1, it is shorter than for D2P. So you have some extra square foot that is allocated to your walkway. But the biggest difference between these two layouts is going to be the junior master suite, which adds on over here. So is it a bonus to go for a 4 bedroom that has a junior master suite? Well, yes, but in the context of Elta, it might not actually be the most advantageous. Why? Now, for your 3 bedroom, you have a layout that already has a junior master suite, and for your 5 bedroom, you also have one that does. So you're not really being the best position to serve the group with a bit more budget constraint, or the group that wants to go all out. Now, if someone wants to buy a 4 bedroom, the 1184 is still very functional if I'm willing to sacrifice that extra bathroom that's attached to my room to go for a lower quantum. So between the two, I would prioritize D1 first and then D2P. Now, the next size for a 4 bedroom is going to be a dual key that is also 1313 square feet, and it is also facing the AYE. So it's broken up into a 1-bedroom unit and then a 3-bedroom. So for the 3-bedroom, again, good size. You have very similar features to the 4 bedrooms we just spoke about, which is a dry kitchen as well as a storeroom and yard area. Now, what I do really like for this dual key is some dual key layouts. For your 1-bedroom unit, the balcony is very close or same direction as your main unit. So if you do rent it out, it doesn't give you a lot of privacy. But for this, they are facing different ways. So if you do choose to stay while renting out, you really get this sense that it's 2 separate apartments. And of course, for dual key, we want to consider the rental yield. So let's have a look. So in this area, for a 1-bedroom, it is going at about 3,600, and for a 3-bedroom, it is 6,300. So adding all together is about 9,900 a month. Assuming we enter at 2,200 PSF for this dual key, it will be about 2.8, which brings our rental yield to 4%, which is super high. So it's quite a healthy rental for a dual key or 4-bedroom in this area. But what I will say and caution is that for this dual key, the rental is very good. But sometimes for dual key, because not a lot of people are okay to buy and then rent the other side, it might be slower to sell a bit. So do factor that into your exit strategy as well. Now, the last layout for a 4-bedroom is going to be the biggest, which is 1507 square feet, and this is also facing the AYE. Now, do note that for this, there is only 35 units versus 36 because it starts on the 5th floor versus the other layout types which start at the 4th floor. So, what are we getting for this extra size? Of course, you have a wider living room over here, and then for your bedrooms, you have 4 here. Now you're going to get an extra study over here also on top of your house shelter here. So you have an extra study to actually use as a study, and then you have storage in the house shelter. You're also getting a wash closet, and similarly for your kitchen, dry kitchen and wet kitchen. So it's a pretty good, I would say. Of course, this layout feels a bit more luxurious. Now, how does that compare to the neighboring 4 bedrooms though? Now let's look at Clavon next door. So for 4-bedroom, their premium layout, I would say right off the bat, I already see something that I like a bit more for that, which is the private lift. Because of course, when we're going for 4 and 5 bedrooms, this comes more into a lux factor with a higher quantum really. So I want to feel good when I buy this because I'm going to stay in it high chance. And when you go for the private lift, it's going to make it feel more exclusive. And I want to pay a bit more for that in that sense. Now if you look at the living room, it also has a bit more of a wider layout. So this can make a space feel much bigger when you walk in. Now for the walk-in wardrobe also, you can see it's a bit different. So for Elta, it is tucked over here like this. And then for Clavon, you really have it in the corner to really give that sense like it's a walk-in wardrobe. So that being said, between the two, I would say that maybe Clavon, the layout is a bit better for the 4-bedroom. So does that mean we cannot go for Elta 4-bedroom? Let's have a look at Jadescape, which also has 2 4-bedroom layouts. Now, one of the layout has a private lift very similar to Clavon, and one of it does not. Now, if we look at the past transaction, so 1647 is the one with the private lift over here. Okay, just to compare the layouts first, you can see for the 4-bedroom at Jadescape that does not come with a private lift, you have, of course, your kitchen, storeroom, the bedrooms, and a living room over here, good size, and a walk-in closet. So very functional 4-bedroom, quite similar to what we see in Elta. What are you getting for that extra space between 1647 versus 1421? It's a lot of luxury factors like the lift over here, now extra powder room, and of course the walk-in wardrobe is a bit bigger here. But other than that, I would say it's still, and one more thing, the white seat landscape. So of course it feels good when you walk in. But again, going back to what I just said, which is both actually function the same, except for the fact that they have a few extra features that will make it feel more luxurious. But doesn't mean that the one without private lift cannot profit, because if we look at the performance of both, let's look at the 2 higher selling 4 bedrooms over here. So both are actually very similar floor and both are facing the pool, and they sold very close timing together in 2024. Now for 1647, they made roughly about 80k more at 994k, and for the 1421, which is this layout without a private lift, they made 910, which is 80k less. Now, if you put that into the quantum of what the buyers paid, not the profit, this means that this layout sold for about 3.8, whereas this one sold for 3.2. So of course, when my layout is more luxurious, my buyer coming in with a higher budget, this is what is going to make them more willing to pay 600k. just to feel good to stay versus the other one. But that doesn't mean that the layout that doesn't have all these extra features cannot make also. It's all about the entry price in that sense. But if you want the layout that your buyers will pay a bit more for, then I would say Clermont holds a bit better compared to Elta's 4-bedroom. Now moving on to our top choice for 4-bedroom. Now for first choice, I'll go with 1184 square feet. I feel it's the most value and most functional. And then for the second one, 1313, because you'll get a similar experience to 1184, but the junior master suite may not be that advantageous. And the last two will be the dual key as well as the 1507. Depending on how the price comes out, I would say they are interchangeable. Lastly, we have the 5 bedrooms, which has just one layout. Now, this layout is going to be 1,776 square feet, which is huge, facing the AYE with 35 units that start on the 5th floor instead of the 4th. So what are we getting for this size? Now, as you enter, you have the dry kitchen over here. Now, if you choose to remove the dry kitchen, this is going to make your living room feel even bigger. Now, as you come into the kitchen, you have your wash closet as well as your utility. Now, something I really do like about the utility is it has this window over here. So of course with 5 bedrooms, likely we're going to have families staying that are multi-generational with helpers. So for those that do choose to use this as a helper room, this is going to give more ventilation and make it more comfortable. As you come into the living room, now typically for 5 and 4 bedrooms, I do prefer landscape layout, and this is a portrait. But because of how wide and how deep it is, it actually feels quite big. Now if you do have a chance to go to the SHOWFLAT in the 5-bedroom unit, they actually put a huge circular table here, which I think sits about 8 to 10. It reminded me a lot of those luxe Chinese restaurant, and even with that, you still have a lot of walking space around it as well as in the living room. Now going into the bedrooms, you have 2 common bedrooms over here. For your master, you have a walk-in wardrobe style over here. Now for this area, you're going to have 2 junior master rooms. So the first one is here and the other one is on the other side to have a bit more privacy. So especially if you have parents living with your older kids, they can each take one, and this is quite functional. And in addition, you have the house shelter over here for more storage. So just like our 4 bedrooms, we want to see how this compares to the 5 bedrooms nearby. So for our next door neighbor, Clermont, the 5-bedroom, I would say it still has a bit of edge over Elta's layout because of the same few factors, which is having a private lift over here as well as the landscape layout. Now for the walk-in wardrobe, instead of being part of the walkway into the bathroom like we have with Elta, it is cut off at the side by itself as well, which makes it feel a bit more like a proper walk-in wardrobe. So between the 2 5-bedrooms, I would say Clermont has a bit more of an edge in terms of the luxurious feel. We have come to the end of our review of Elta. I hope this video was helpful for those of you looking to check it out so you can be prepared and know what to look out for when you go down. If you have any other questions, you're welcome to reach out to me at the listed contact. Now the estimated launch day for this will be 7 February with booking day on 22nd of February. Now that's all for today, and I'll catch you all next time.